Hi guys, welcome to my channel. So today's video is actually an Australian cold case. So this happened in 1994 and this year I think marks 25 years since the crime, and no one has been charged for the disappearance of Revelle Balmain. So I will just apologize for the glare on my glasses quickly. It is going to be very distracting. It's distracting me. I am trying to get that sorted, so just please bear with me throughout this video. Okay, so Revelle was a beautiful 22-year-old blonde-haired, blue-eyed natural beauty. She was born on the 11th of July 1972 in Manly, New South Wales, which is a little beachy suburb in Sydney, Australia. So if you've been to Sydney, it's possible you've been to Manly Beach or at least heard of Manly Beach. So she was a warm, kind, happy girl. She had a brother Matthew, a sister Sullen, her mum Jan, and her dad Ivor. So she had a normal childhood growing up. She was very happy, but tragedy did strike the family when Revelle was only 4 years old. Unfortunately, she found the body of her 15-month-old baby brother Matthew floating in the family's pool. So her mum Jan said that this possibly did affect her throughout her life and into her adulthood, and could be a reason for some of the decisions she has made in her adult life, which has ultimately led to her death. So Revelle also worked as a high-end escort for 2 agencies under the alias Misha. So normally I wouldn't add something like this into a video because I feel like as soon as you say escort or prostitute, it sort of takes away from the story, and people lose compassion for sex workers and think I guess that they've done this to themselves, or they're not that surprised that something like this would have happened. But she was a normal human being. Everyone deserves justice, and yeah, so this is basically Rochelle's story. So Friday the 5th of November 1994 was the last time she was seen. She was getting out. She was following her dream. She was going to Japan and front cover of a magazine for modeling. She had everything going for her, and I just can't comprehend how suddenly something so terrible could happen to somebody that has so much to look forward to in their life. So on the morning of her disappearance, Revelle actually had the whole day planned to be with her boyfriend. So they were together, and then he was feeling unwell, so he went home in the morning, and they decided they would meet up that night, meet up with some of her friends and carry on from there. So Rochelle went on with her day and called the agency and let them know that she was actually free because she didn't have plans anymore. So the agency called her and gave her a 4 p.m. client, Gavin Samner. So the agency she worked for was called Select Companions, and it was run by a married couple, Jan and Zoran Stanojevic. I probably said that wrong, I apologize. So she then took a second booking with 2 Yugoslavians through her company, and they were friends of Zoran, as he was also Yugoslavian. So these clients were apparently very important to the agency as they were personal friends, but Zoran also wanted to make a good impression on his company because these people were from his country, and he wanted to sort of show them what he has made for himself. So Revelle apparently didn't make this second appointment. She met Gavin at his house in Kingsford at 3:55, and she called the company to let them know she had arrived. She then called them again at 5:50 to tell them her appointment had finished. So from there, apparently they both had a private agreement to extend her time at the house with him, which is a cash deal, and this is called moonlighting. And apparently this isn't allowed when you work for an agency, because the agency doesn't get a cut of the money. You're potentially ripping them off from a client that they could have made money from. So Gavin then said after their private appointment that he had dropped her off at the Red Tomato Inn in Kingsford, although no one ever saw her there. So I think this is very important because Kingsford at this time was around the Red Tomato Inn. It wasn't a very nice place. Like, it was full of very questionable people with questionable appearances. So when the police did interview people working at this inn, they said if they had seen someone looking like Revelle, they would have remembered. She was beautiful. She's not someone that would just slip by in the shadows and people wouldn't notice, but nobody saw her there that day whatsoever. So Revelle did make a phone call at 7:15 p.m. to her best friend Kate Brentle from Gavin's house in McNair Avenue, saying that after she got home in an hour, they would meet up at the Royal Hotel Paddington, and that was the last time anyone had ever heard from her. So Revelle was due to catch a train the next morning at 9:15 to meet her mum at Newcastle station about 11 o'clock. So she was going to see her family before she embarked on this trip she was going on. So her mum was waiting for her and she never arrived. So she started to get concerned and called her friends and then called hospitals to see if anything had happened, and then finally she reported her missing to the police. So a few days later, police did turn up to her house and they did tell her that a few of Jane's items were found scattered around the Kingscliff area. So a cork platform she was wearing on the day was found in a garbage bin, her handbag was found in a gutter, and her keys and diary were found on the street. So all of these items looked like they'd been thrown out of a car, and they were all within about a 4-block radius in the suburb of Kingscliff. So Gavin Sumner was considered the main person of interest in this case, just because he was the last person to see her alive, and there was nobody else that had seen her at the inn after he had dropped her off to confirm his story. So this is where the police situation sort of mucks up and gets a little bit sticky in the investigation, because in my opinion this could have possibly been solved already if they had done everything correct from the very beginning and I guess taken it a bit more seriously. So Michelle Oswald Seeley was Gavin's then girlfriend, and she remembered seeing scratches on him when he picked her up from the airport 2 days after Revelle went missing. So she was away when he had hired Revelle to come around to his house. She also noticed that his car had been cleaned out and the back seats were folded down, and normally his car was just full of junk and surfboards, and it was sort of just a messy car, although she did say occasionally he was known to clean his car out, so she didn't think too much of it at the time. So she also got home and realized her bed sheets and the house had been cleaned, and he was very lazy. He didn't do a lot of the housework. He was sort of slack. So I think she thought that was a little bit strange that he had actually done something when normally she was the one that did the chores around the house. But when she found out about Revelle, she put it down to the fact that he had slept with somebody else, that he had then changed the sheets and washed everything. Police believe the scratches on Gavin are possibly as a result of a struggle, although he has maintained that they are from a surfing accident. I know the police did take and confiscate 2 wetsuits for forensic testing to see whether those scratches could happen through the wetsuit material or not, but I couldn't find any information of anything that actually came from that, so I'm not sure if that's just something they're keeping quiet and holding on to, because I know sometimes in situations like that they do keep some information private so they can potentially in the future charge someone when they get a bit more information. The examiner also said the marks on Gavin's fingers look like a bite mark and something that could be made from someone's teeth, so that would also happen in a struggle if she has bit his finger. So another thing that happened was Kelly was never interviewed. So Kelly was the escort that took her place when she didn't turn up for her appointment. So apparently Kelly was with Zoran, and Zoran dropped her off to the Yugoslavians that night, but Kelly was never found to, or looked for even, to be interviewed to say that yes, there was this appointment, and the 2 Yugoslavian men were also never talked to. So what also is very frustrating, that in the initial crucial hours after she went missing, Gavin's house was never searched by a forensic team. They did go through and search it, but the only search they were doing was an eyesight search where they looked visually for anything that looks like a struggle, scuff marks, blood, hair on the wall. So yeah, and Gavin's car was also not searched for 9 days after her disappearance, which I think is a long time when his car would potentially be something used to take her body away from the crime scene. So police did initially search his house, and the inquest stated that they also didn't search any of his clothes or even ask him what he was wearing that day. So if he said he was wearing something and they couldn't find it, that's potentially something. They didn't even search his washing to see what he had just freshly washed. His girlfriend did come home from her holiday and say one of his favorite shirts that he always wears was missing, and she never saw it again. So that also could be something. Police also couldn't find his checkbook that he apparently wrote a check to Revelle in this checkbook before he dropped her off at the Tomato Inn, but that checkbook has never been found. In 1999, they had a coroner's inquiry, and there was another account shared. So a man named Jeremy Colgan said his close friend at the time, Mark Colton, who was a rich client of Revelle's, had told him she had been murdered. So I'm going to read what he potentially said to Mr. Colgan. He said, "Aren't people gullible and stupid? You've heard the story about Revelle Balmain. First there was a story about an Arab prince who took her back to Saudi Arabia. What a load of crap. She's 10 foot under and no one will find her body. That's what you get for moonlighting and ripping off the brothel she worked for, and drugging clients, stealing all their money. Basically, the owner of the brothel wanted her dead because she was destroying his business. I knew her, and she was a nasty little gold digger and coke addict that would do anything for money." So apparently that was a statement said one night when they were both drinking at a party. Mr. Colton at the inquiry dismissed that statement and said it's complete rubbish. He had heard rumours, but he'd never said that, and he doesn't know what happened to Revelle. So I do find the statement interesting though, because Zoran and his wife's stories sort of didn't match up either in the beginning of the investigation. Zoran's wife said that he left the house about 6:30, whereas he said that he was home all night. They were both ruled out as suspects at the beginning of the investigation, but I also think if they've known she was moonlighting and ripping off the agency, they wouldn't be happy with her. She was only working for them for 6 weeks, so you know, it's possible that they didn't really care that she was leaving the business. But I do think it's also peculiar that his wife said a lot about how unreliable she was, and she would say to the media this, I guess, to put out a certain viewpoint on what Revelle was like. But if she was that unreliable and you had a high-end client on her last day that you wanted her to meet with, why would you then choose her as the girl to go when you wouldn't have been 100% sure that she would have turned up to this really important appointment? So I think that's a bit strange too. It's also possible that Gavin and Zoran and his wife were all in on it together, and they planned for her to go to his house, and then he did something to her, and then they removed the body, and it was a big cover-up because both of their stories seemed very like sketchy. But yeah, so as of today, no one has been charged for the crime. I know there was another inquiry in 2008 where they went back to his house he lived in, and they did get evidence and put it in bags and bring it out of the house because they had found some things, but that's been over 10 years ago and nothing has come out. So again, it might not have been enough evidence, or it might not have been anything. It is possible they still have things that they're holding on to, and they just need that one little lead from someone to blow open the investigation and lay charges. So yeah, unfortunately Revelle's father has passed away before being able to find out what happened to his daughter, so I'm just hoping one day there is closure for this case. So yeah, if you guys have any ideas, I guess, of what possibly could have happened and things like that, just post them down below and let me know. Thank you.